Well, it's certainly been another busy week in federal politics, with the opposition leader advancing a surprise plan for paid parental leave and the government picking up the pieces from its bungled home insulation rebate scheme. Joining us to discuss these and other issues in our regular Friday morning political debate are Finance Minister Lindsay Tanner in Canberra and Shadow Communications Minister Tony Smith in Sydney. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Ron.
Let's begin with you, Minister. The whole idea of 6 months paid maternity or parental leave, as they're calling it these days, seems pretty popular from the opposition. Have they got you trumped on this issue at the moment?
Oh, no, they haven't. This is a plan that's made up pretty much on the back of a beer coaster, Ron. They're proposing to put a big tax slug on major businesses, on jobs, that will ultimately be very negative for our economy. And they haven't been able to pin down the details, so we're not even sure exactly how the threshold works. And of course, Joe Hockey, the Shadow Treasurer, Barnaby Joyce, the Shadow Finance Minister, the Shadow Cabinet, they weren't consulted. Tony Abbott even apologised to his own party room for not consulting people. So inevitably there'll be some people who are attracted to the proposal, but you've got to look at the wider picture here, and that is that this is a great big tax on Australian business, on job creation that will be negative for our economy, and it favours higher income earners. Our plan is designed to ensure that everybody can afford to take the time out from work to have children. That's what the whole purpose of the plan is. It's affordable, it's on the budget, and it's fair.
Tony Smith, when Mr Abbott first flew the flag on this whole issue, he was talking pretty tough, but he's now backed off that significantly, and clearly there are problems with taxing business to pay for it all. Has he got it wrong?
No, look, he hasn't. He's put forward a very solid plan. What we just heard from Lindsay was him making it up on the run in response. Now, Lindsay is arguing for the plan Labor put forward, which is a Mickey Mouse scheme. This has been well received. It's a tangible plan. It's 6 months and it addresses a real problem. It'll be good for the economy. We need a productive workforce going forward. We know we've got a shortage of workers. This will be good for business, and Lindsay, I predict, will end up changing Labor's plan. If he wants to rule out here today that he won't change it at all, if he wants to give that guarantee, I'd be very surprised.
Well, what's the position, Mr Tanner, to get it through? It looks like you might have to tweak the edges.
Well, one thing I can guarantee you is we won't be slapping a giant new tax on job-creating businesses in Australia like Tony Abbott's proposing, Ron. We are faced with a hostile Senate where Tony Abbott and the Liberal Party are blocking virtually everything, and they've threatened to block our paid parental leave scheme, the first one in Australia's history. We had 12 years of John Howard and the Liberal Party, and they wouldn't do it. Tony Abbott said over his dead body, would you see paid parental leave.
What areas would you be prepared to make some concessions, though?
Oh, look, I can't forecast how we'll respond to the Senate, Ron, but ultimately we face these problems on everything. But we're committed to sticking with our scheme. We believe it's fiscally responsible, it's in the budget, it's fair, it's affordable, and we don't propose to move from that. Now, we'll see how the Senate behaves, but we don't believe that Mr Abbott should block the government scheme. He can't even say when his scheme would come into effect. He says, maybe around 2013. Well, ours comes into effect on January the 1st next year. So if he blocks our scheme, then you'll have a couple of years, at least maybe 3 or 4, where there's no paid parental leave for anybody.
Mr
Ron,
Smith, good point, yeah.
Well, that's a furphy, Ron. Tony Abbott said clearly yesterday, this is a Mickey Mouse scheme being put forward by Labor, but we are not going to oppose small steps. What we're saying to Kevin Rudd is join with us and let's do something better, let's do something more tangible. That's what we're going to try and achieve. Now, Lindsay spoke a lot of words then, but I think we can be clear that Labor will move from their Mickey Mouse policy, and we'll probably be talking about it on another Friday in a few weeks or a few months' time, Ron.
Mr Smith, at a time when the opposition is flagging a possible new tax, you're actually berating the government on the whole issue of tax as well. We've just had the Medicare rebate scheme voted down in the Senate because of that very issue. It seems a strange time to talk about a new tax.
Well, look, we're talking about an integrated package that will help the economy, and as I said, it'll help big business with retaining good workers. We've got a shortage of workers in this country, and for almost a decade, commentators have rightly pointed out that paid parental leave is something that has to have a comprehensive approach. Ours is for 6 months. It is tangible pay, it is the pay that you're on for a 6-month period. It gives certainty, and it'll ensure and encourage that more women go back into the workforce, and that's what business needs, and that's what the economy needs.
Minister, let me just talk home insulation for a moment. We've got an admission from the Prime Minister this morning that Peter Garrett actually sent 4 letters to him last year asking him to tighten up the whole scheme. We may now be looking that the buck actually stops on all of this with the Prime Minister rather than Peter Garrett, who's already had to step aside.
The Prime Minister's already said that he takes full responsibility on behalf of the government.
But now we're actually seeing why he needs to take full responsibility, perhaps.
I think you'll find that those letters refer to the matters that were raised with the Minister that then led to steps being taken by the Minister, such as banning foil insulation.
We don't know, Lindsay, because he won't release them. We don't know. He won't release them.
Well, these are part of Cabinet deliberations which no government, your previous government or ours, releases the material.
Well, so how can you say Ron would find that out? Ron can't find it out if you don't release it.
I'd suggest to you that all you're dealing with here is the Prime Minister responding to reporting by the Minister saying the following problem has arisen, I have taken action or I'm proposing to take action to deal with it. Now, we accept there have been problems with this program. We're acting to remedy those problems. It is a difficult, complex challenge, but the survey work, the initial examination has indicated that of houses examined, 92% did not have any safety problems. So there are still issues that we have to deal with here. We are dealing with them, and we accept full responsibility for the fact that the scheme has had these problems.
And the multi-millions to fix it all up. Where do we stand with that?
Well, these are all part of the overall approach on house insulation that we are pursuing, Ron. So yes, there is a cost. There's no question about that. There is a cost that we have to bear here, and that's unfortunate, but it's just a reality that we are pursuing. But ultimately, the safety of Australian householders is the primary consideration.
Mr Smith, the opposition seems to have gone cold on this whole issue. Why is that?
Look, we've been pursuing it in Parliament. It's time Kevin Rudd came clean and stated when he first became aware about the safety dangers. It's no use hiding behind letters. He should say when he became aware. Lindsay, as a Cabinet Minister, should say when he became aware. And I think Lindsay now would regret his comment of a few weeks ago that it was justifiable to rush this program and not dot the I's and cross the T's.
No, it's a complete misrepresentation of my statement, and you know it.
Well, sorry, Lindsay, that's what I read in the paper.
No, that's probably you're reading Joe Hockey's gross misrepresentation of my statement.
Oh, well, I mean, Lindsay, the bottom line here is this has been an absolute schmozzle. You rushed this program. Now there is a massive bill to clean it up, and still the Prime Minister won't come clean, and you won't come clean and say when you were first warned. We know Peter Garrett was warned over and over again. Kevin Rudd's told us there were letters to him. What he won't say is when he was warned, and what you won't say is when you were warned.
Well, I'm very happy to answer that. Peter Garrett did indicate to the Cabinet or relevant Cabinet Committee at various points issues have emerged. We're proposing to take the following actions to deal with them, so that what you've heard Peter Garrett outline in the Parliament about the steps he took during the latter part of last year were, of course, reported to people like the Prime Minister and myself. That's the extent of my knowledge. As these things unfolded, actions were being taken. It turned out that those actions were not enough to deal with the problem. But to suggest all these sinister conspiracies, I think, is just completely off the mark. There is no evidence to sustain any of that.
Minister, thank you very much for your time this morning. Lindsay Tanner and also Tony Smith from the opposition, the Shadow Communications Minister. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Lindsay. Thanks, Ron.
Up next in sport, Australia.